While the world is obsessed with building harder tech and sturdier economies, one vital part of the male anatomy is doing the exact opposite. It's softening. In less than 20 years, ED rates for men under 40 have skyrocketed from a rare 5% to a staggering 34%. We are living in a bizarre paradox. The global ED drug market is now a multi-billion-dollar empire. Yet we know almost nothing about the science of why young penises are failing. Is it just old man biology, or is modern life literally rewiring your hardware? Let's dive into the uncomfortable science. To be honest, getting an erection is actually incredibly hard. And no, I'm not just making another hard joke here. I mean, it's biologically difficult. It requires a near-perfect, high-stakes coordination between your endocrine system, your nervous system, your cardiovascular health, and the physical tissues of your penis. Think of it like a massive symphonic orchestra, where every single player has to hit the right note at exactly the right microsecond. If the trumpet is flat or the conductor loses the beat, the whole performance falls apart. Physicians generally categorize the reasons for this performance failure into two specific buckets. First, you have physiological ED. This is the hardware side of the problem. It's when something is physically wrong with the machinery. Maybe your vasculature is damaged or aged, your hormones are out of whack, or perhaps you're putting your body through habits that actively sabotage your blood flow. Then, you have psychological ED. This is the software side, and interestingly, it is the most common type for young people right now. It's not that the machinery is broken, it's that the signal from the control room is getting scrambled. But before we dive into the mental static, we have to look at a massive, often overlooked physiological trigger that's been hiding in plain sight, and it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. It's the cost of what many call mental stability. We're talking about the shadow of SSRIs. There is a gut-wrenching irony we often ignore when discussing mental health. The very pills designed to pull you out of a dark hole mentally can sometimes bury you physically. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, think of big names like Zoloft or Prozac, work by keeping your serotonin levels high. In your brain, that's great. It helps you feel less anxious and more stable. But in the bedroom, serotonin is the silent assassin of libido and erectile function. It's a brutal trade-off. You might stop feeling the crushing weight of depression, but you also lose the ability to feel that peak physical spark. I've seen so many guys in their 20s and 30s suffering in total silence because they're terrified of the choice. Do I choose a healthy mind or a functioning body? If you're on these medications and things have gone quiet down there, please hear this. It's not because you are broken or weak. It's a documented medical side effect. It's a hardware-software conflict. And the more we understand that this is a physiological response to a chemical change, the sooner we can talk to doctors about adjusting dosages or finding alternative therapies that don't leave your sex life in the shadows. Because at the end of the day, your endocrine system doesn't care if the chemical is coming from a vape pen or a pharmacy-grade bottle. It just reacts to the signal. And right now, for millions of men, those signals are being jammed. So, let's look at what else is messing with the frequency. So, if it's not just in your head, what exactly is happening to our bodies in this modern world? It turns out, we might be accidentally assassinating our own performance through habits we consider totally normal or even healthy. Let's start with something that hits close to home for me: cycling. I bike almost every day, but the science here is honestly a bit terrifying. When you sit on a standard bike seat, you are putting a massive amount of pressure directly on your perineum. That's the gooch, or the area between your anus and your scrotum. This area is packed with the vital nerves and arteries that supply your penis. A survey of 160 cyclists found that 21% experienced penile numbness and 13% dealt with temporary impotence. Another study suggests that riding more than just 3 hours a week significantly increases your risk of physiological ED. As someone who spends way more time than that on a saddle, I'm stuck between choosing my cardio and, well, my equipment. It's a literal pain in the gooch. Then there's the vaping trend. We see young men vaping everywhere now, thinking it's the safer alternative, but your blood vessels disagree. Nicotine is a powerful vasoconstrictor. That means it makes your blood vessels tighten and narrow. To get an erection, you need your vasculature to open up and stay open. Vaping basically does the exact opposite, significantly reducing blood flow to the genitals. And it's not just a guy thing. This same mechanism is why we're seeing a rise in lower libido and lubrication issues in young women too. But what about what we eat? You might think that going all in on a trendy keto or an all-meat carnivore diet is the peak of masculinity. But the data says otherwise. These extreme diets often lack the specific phytonutrients and antioxidants found in fruits and vegetables that reduce endothelial inflammation. Without those, your blood vessels lose their elasticity. One study found that men who strictly avoided fruits and vegetables had a much higher risk of ED compared to those who hit the recommended 300 grams of fruit and 150 grams of vegetables a day. Basically, if you want your meat to work, you probably need to eat your greens. And now, I want to talk about the elephant in the bar: alcohol. For years, we've seen this J-curve in data suggesting that moderate drinkers, like those having one drink a day, actually have lower rates of ED than people who don't drink at all. It sounds great, right? A beer a day keeps the doctor away? Well, not exactly. Scientists are now identifying a massive control group bias in those studies. See, the non-drinker group often includes people who can't drink because they are already very sick, are recovering alcoholics with past damage, or are on heavy medications. When you actually control for those factors, that magical dip in the curve, where alcohol supposedly helps, almost entirely vanishes. Alcohol is a depressant. It dulls the central nervous system and dehydrates the body, both of which are disastrous for maintaining an erection. That liquid courage might help you talk to a partner, but it's likely sabotaging the actual finish line. We're essentially living in a world designed to keep our blood flow restricted, our nerves compressed, and our nutrients depleted. It's a perfect physiological storm. But even if you have a perfect diet and zero nicotine, there's another layer to this mystery that is even harder to wrap your head around. It's time we talk about the software. But even if you have the perfect diet, the cleanest lungs, and zero bike seat trauma, there is another layer to this mystery that is even harder to wrap your head around. It's the software. We need to talk about why your brain might be ghosting your body right when it matters most. Psychological ED is now the leading type for younger men. Most guys in this boat find that everything works fine in the morning, or when they're alone, but the moment a partner is involved, the system shuts down. So, what changed? One massive factor since the 1990s is the explosion of online pornography. Some researchers suggest that when porn becomes your primary source of sexual stimuli, your brain gets rewired to respond to high-speed, varied visual pixels rather than the physical reality of a human being. A 2015 paper found that erectile problems often occur when real-life stimulation simply can't compete with the hyper-vivid, always-on dopamine hit of the screen. Your brain is essentially looking for a refresh button that doesn't exist in the real world. But it goes deeper than just dopamine. Think of your brain as a top-tier security system. To start the engine for sex, your body's #1 requirement isn't actually excitement, it's safety. Here is the paradox of safety. So many men today are trapped in a performance loop. You walk into the bedroom thinking, I have to do this right, I can't fail again. And instantly, your brain detects that pressure as a threat. In that moment, your amygdala screams, danger, and your body enters fight or flight mode. Your cortisol levels spike, increasing vascular resistance to push blood toward your heart and lungs so you can fight a tiger, not toward your penis for a romantic encounter. It's a literal survival mechanism. We blame tech, we blame our partners, and we blame ourselves. But we rarely admit that men simply don't have the tools to feel safe enough to be vulnerable. If your mind isn't relaxed, your body won't open the gates. It's not a mechanical failure. It's your brain trying to protect you from the stress of your own expectations. This creates a vicious cycle. You fail once because of stress, which makes you more anxious the second time, which guarantees a failure the third time. You're not broken. You're just stuck in a loop where your security software is overriding your pleasure hardware. And when you combine that mental static with the physiological killers we talked about earlier, it's no wonder the rates are skyrocketing. But knowing this is the first step to fixing it. So, how do we actually get the system back online? So, now that we've looked at how modern life is essentially a minefield for your performance, the question is, how do we actually fix the machinery? The good news is that because your body is a dynamic system, you can actually recalibrate it. But you have to be specific. First, let's talk about the fuel. Science consistently points to the Mediterranean diet as the gold standard for sexual health. Why? Because it's packed with nutrients that reduce endothelial dysfunction. Basically, it keeps your blood vessels flexible and happy. One study found that men who saw the biggest improvements were consuming at least 150 grams of vegetables, 300 grams of fruit, and 30 grams of nuts every single day. These foods are rich in nitrates and antioxidants that help your body produce nitric oxide, which is the literal go signal for blood flow. If you're currently living on a meat-only or heavy processed carb diet, your vasculature is likely struggling with inflammation. Switch the script. More greens, more healthy fats, and way less nicotine. Then, there's the sleep factor. We often treat sleep like a luxury, but for your endocrine system, it's a non-negotiable requirement. Most of your testosterone production happens while you're asleep. If you're pulling 5 hours a night and staying permanently connected to your job and phone, your cortisol levels never get a chance to drop. And as we know, high cortisol equals low performance. You need to disconnect from the digital world at least an hour before bed to let your nervous system move out of that high alert state. But here is a fascinating piece of the puzzle that often gets ignored: the power of cohabitating. A large meta-analysis found that men who live with a romantic partner are actually less likely to suffer from psychological ED. It sounds counterintuitive if you think familiarity breeds boredom, but biologically, it's the opposite. Living with a partner provides a consistent sense of security. This long-term bonding releases oxytocin and helps lower chronic cortisol levels. It creates a safe harbor that counteracts the performance anxiety you might feel in casual or high-pressure encounters. When you feel truly safe with someone, your brain stops treating sex like a high-stakes test and starts treating it like a relaxed, natural connection. The strategy here isn't just about taking a pill or hitting the gym harder. It's about a total system reboot. It's about eating for your arteries, sleeping for your hormones, and finding a psychological space where you don't feel like you're constantly on trial. If you can start making these small, science-backed shifts, you're not just treating a symptom, you're restructuring your entire manhood from the ground up. But before you go, there's one last thing we need to address. And it's probably the most important part of this whole conversation. To anyone watching this who feels a knot of anxiety tightening in their chest right now, you are not a machine, and your value as a man isn't measured by the rigidity of a tissue block. We are living in an era where masculinity is constantly being shoved into boxes: how much is in your bank account, how many hours you pull at the gym, and how many minutes you can perform in the bedroom. But I want you to look at what your body is actually trying to tell you. ED isn't a life sentence. It's a biological check engine light. It's your system reacting to a world of sensory overload, nutrient-depleted diets, and a mind that hasn't truly felt off the clock in years. We've been conditioned to think that admitting there's a problem is a sign of weakness. But real strength starts with the courage to face the vulnerability of your own body. So, let's normalize the conversation. Share this video with your friends, or even your family. I know it sounds like an awkward share, but it really doesn't have to be. Breaking the silence is exactly how we break the cycle of anxiety that keeps so many men stuck. True masculinity isn't about being bulletproof. It's about having the courage to confront the truth, fix the habits that are weighing you down, and forgive yourself in the process. Start by sleeping 30 minutes more, eating a handful of walnuts, and most importantly, stop treating your bedroom like a courtroom. There is a ton of new science coming out in this field every day, so we'll keep making videos as the data comes in. Thank you so much for watching. If this helped you feel a little less alone, make sure you're subscribed, smash that like button, and we'll see you soon for a new science video. Awesome. Peace.